just cut these little little caps here to block these off. I'm gonna hold on to this so I don't get like water going down in the frame because there's no exit. So I was test fitting the second one. This one's mild steel. The second one is stainless. I was test fitting that and then it slipped out of my fingers and went right down the frame. And it's disappeared into the abyss. And it's stainless, so it's not magnetic, so I can't sneak it out of there that way. So it's probably in there forever. I'm gonna try a piece of like wire with some tape on it, just see if I get lucky, but I mean, it's gonna stick to everything else too, so who knows. Otherwise, oh well, I'm just gonna cap it. Okay, we are all welded up. The whole hardtail and everything is welded up anyway. So I basically welded all the way around the notch that I had. I covered this with aluminum so I didn't screw up my lines. Those survived. Capped off this so it doesn't suck up water. Capped these as well. Didn't spend time cleaning off the weld to make it look pretty because I don't have time. Same with this. Came out pretty good, I think. It looks very weird because there's like shiny spots and dirty spots, so it makes it look very like funky and uglier than it is. But the welds came out pretty good, I think, considering all the gaps that I had. I'll wire wheel that. So this is all solid in here. It's strapped across the joint, and then it goes across the top. I redid the top too. And then these gussets are solid all the way. That's solid in there. So yeah, I gusseted this guy too. So we should be pretty good, I think. So there's a better look of it. Gnarly freaking gooseneck. This bike is so long. It's actually an inch longer than my, it's an inch longer wheelbase than my last year bike, which I did not expect. So, came out pretty sweet. I'm gonna see if the wheel fits or if it like pulled in super crazy. So, a little time-lapse break. Yeah. This washer is supposed to go underneath that seal. And I got in a hurry because I'm like, I could finish this tonight and get it done. And I was pretty confident because I'd just done the first one, so I knew what I was doing. So I got in a hurry, cleaned this out, took the washer out, cleaned the washer, started putting the new seal in, realized I didn't have the washer underneath it. So I'm like, well, that's fun because there's a sealing lip at the bottom, so good luck trying to pry that back out without damaging it. So my other idea was to try to push one side down to kick the seal crooked, so it'd be a lot easier to just gently pop the other end up. So I used one of my other little seal tools to try to push down, and it slipped off and then jacked up the spring, as you can see. So I don't think I'm gonna even bother trying that. So I just ordered another set, and I'm gonna see tomorrow because those are coming Sunday, and I want to just get these done. I don't want them open while I'm grinding in the garage. So I'm gonna see if the dealer has just the seal, which they probably do, hopefully. They're around the corner from my house, so I'm gonna see if I can just buy one. Worst case, I gotta wait till Sunday to get another set. Hooray! On a more positive note, I did get my radiator in. That's just the guard, but I got the radiator, that's the size. And I got a tractor type seat that may or may not work with my little suspension thing that I'm building. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but whatever. Looks sort of cool because it's so wide along with how wide the motor's gonna be. And I got new tires on my daily. And I got new tires for this bike that aren't all screwed up. And I also got the wheel straightened and the rotor straightened. So that's something. just realized a very important part seems to be missing, and that is the inner sprocket hub spacer, which goes between the sprocket hub bearing race and the wheel bearing race. So when you have all the correct spacers, you have basically a solid cylinder of steel that you're able to torque the axle properly with. If you don't have the spacer in there, you're basically just going to jam all of these into the wheel hub, jam into the rubber, and it's not actually going to get tight. So of course this bike is an oddball and they didn't make a ton of them, so there's nothing on eBay and the parts discontinued. I'm going to see if the spacer might be hanging out in the bin of random parts that he gave me. Of course, no spacer in the bin. And nothing on eBay, but I found one for a 750 LTD, which is I think the cruiser version, and I double checked the part number and it's the same. So thank God I can find that and not have to try to figure out the width, which is the really annoying part of that. It would be super easy to make if I had one to measure, but finding the width on the inside between the sprocket and the inner wheel bearing is like, good luck. You just guess and check. I don't know. So 20 bucks or so, hopefully I'll get that. Yeah, it's a time of where I'm constantly back and forth between I can finish this and there's no way I'm gonna finish this. It's one of those times today where I'm like, what did I even do? And then I realized, oh yeah, I got a new fork seal this morning, finished the forks. That went well, those aren't leaking anymore. And then I came back and I was just machining for a long time, finishing up the handlebar clamps to bolt into the top clamp, because the Gixxer has clip-ons, and clip-ons are definitely not going to reach for how far I put the seat from the bars from the front end. Then I was realizing that this stupid big driven clutch thing has to go like as low as possible, or my leg is just always going to be hitting it anytime I put my left leg down, which usually I don't put my left leg down, but Dirtbag pretty much always involves dirt, so I'm likely going to have to put my left foot down at some point. So had to put that way lower than I was planning, which means the stock foot pegs won't fit anymore, but I've got an easy solution for that. The chain is gonna barely clear. I have to stick the clutch out more than I was planning. Otherwise there would be no room for the bolts where the bearing bolts into the plate that holds the shaft there. So that's gonna stick out further, so I'm like, oh, so good. It's really gotta go low. So yeah, it was just a lot of then the last half of the day was just like I didn't get anything done. It's just like figuring it out. Anyway, I'm filthy and it's midnight, so I've got 2 more days. I got Labor Day, extra day of work. Yeah, it'll be a lot of garage work on Labor Day. So, till next time.
Oh yes.
Okay, I was gonna explain what I'm doing basically. So I'm using the original engine plate because that way the engine bolts in from the bottom. These are all the engine bolts, and this is the underside. So I could have slotted these holes and made the engine adjust that way, but it would have been really annoying to get to them underneath. And I figured since it's already on this plate, I might as well just use this plate, because that way I can just leave it bolted how it was stock. And then I'm putting in new bolts here that are going to end up being slotted, so I can reach those from the top if I need to shift the engine at all. I have these, made these blocks. These are M12 by 1 1/4 fine thread. So I'm going to bolt all these in like that. There's going to be 4 of those. And this right now is just barely over the M12 size, so it keeps my position. And that way I'm just going to, and this is also a spacer. I'm doing this basically to space the engine up and to get the spinning CVT chunk right here away from the ground, so I can actually turn. So I've got 2 inches here plus another inch for that block. So these are already tacked in place. They're parallel and square to the frame. They're about where they need to be, and then those little blocks are going to sit on top here, and I'm just going to weld those in. So this gives me a platform. These are already, this is flat. And I'll be able to shift the engine around to get the belt aligned, because the alignment's very critical. It needs to be a certain amount of offset with these, and it needs to be obviously in line like square wise. So because this, I do have some adjustment here. I made this shaft adjustable, but it would be kind of annoying to have this like move around. I realized since I milled these plates and they ended up, they're basically exactly the same. The shaft sits almost like perfectly square with the frame. So if I just slap it in there and let it sit at the bottom, as you can see, it's shifted to the bottom of my adjustment. It sits like almost perfect by itself. So I'd rather not like fiddle around with this. So if I get the engine squared up here and in position, then I'll just go underneath and I'll tack those blocks in place. And then I've got to unscrew them, the whole engine, take it off, take the engine plate off again, and then I'll make my slots. So that way the holes are going to keep the blocks in the right spot, and then the slots are going to be added later so I can adjust the engine front to back a little bit. Since the belt tension is also pretty important. But I'm going to set it, basically it's supposed to be 12 inches center to center. I hope that's the right number, but that's the number I found. It's supposed to be 12 inches from the center of each shaft. So I'll set it as close as I can. And then obviously the belts might be stretched or a little different belt to belt maybe. So that way I've got a hair of adjustment to move it front and back. And then worst case, if I don't have enough, I can always pull the plate off again and slot it more. So that was the other reason, is this enables me to get it pretty much exactly where it should be from the start, and I won't have to fiddle around with it much at all, hopefully. That's the plan, unless something goes totally wrong. Okay, so I ended up using some little pieces of stock clamp that was barely able to clamp on the starter gear here. So this basically gives me 2 points to the flat plane on the back, which is where the alignment's supposed to happen. I'm allowed 1 inch of offset plus up to a 60 thou air gap. So basically an extra 1/16 if I want to make it bigger. So I have this set with a little washer inside. There's a spacer which came off the snowmobile, and I'm just using this off the edge, a straight edge to here. I have a 1-inch piece of stock, so that gave me my automatic 1-inch. So I was just lining that up with these 2 points in the back. This is not actually totally true. It's kind of got a little bit of lateral run out. So I was going like, what's the deal? And I realized when I checked in different spots, I was getting different gap. But it'll be close enough. I kind of spun it around, checked a few spots, so it's anywhere from like just touching, interfering a little bit, to like a small gap, but it's straight, pretty close. So yeah, it is probably the hottest day this summer that we've had. I think it's like 114 today. And to give you some perspective, it is, I think it's like 10:15 at night and still like 95 or something. And my poor little welder overheated for the first time in like 5 years of owning it, or however long I've had it, maybe 6 years, I don't know. Legit, like, had a little temp light go on and just stopped working. So I put the fan on it for a while, it went back off, and I think I'm back in business. But geez, it is absolutely disgusting to be out welding right now. But less than 3 weeks to go, so. The big thing with the Dirtbag is not only the price, the budget, but the time. Just because if you realize that you need a part or something, like towards the end, you run out of time to be able to find it and ship it in time. So I've got about 2.5 weeks, and I figured today I'm going to bleed the brakes and see that the brakes work. If I remember right, this whole Gixxer front end came off a bike I bought. It was not the right front end for the bike, so I took it all off and put the right one on. And the brakes are from 04, 05, and I think they worked fine when I had it on the bike, if I remember right. But it's been sitting for probably 3 or 4 years, or yeah, probably like 4 years at least. So hopefully they all work. I pieced together a lever that I found from like 3 pieces of levers, and so I got that. I got the pin coming that goes here, the pivot pin in the middle. I'm gonna have to use something today because I don't have that right now. It's still coming in the mail. So, but yeah, if I find out that like the seals are bad in something, I have to order it, and then I need time to order it and for it to ship and for me to rebuild. So there's stuff like that where towards the end it gets tight. You're like, oh, can I get this part in time and get it done in time? So we're getting there. This is the dumb stuff you find when you work on used bikes. Basically, they had this bracket bolted on the back using the well nut and a bolt. And I looked at it, I'm like, wait a second. And I'm like, why is this thing like spinning around? And I'm like, oh yeah, there's supposed to be a pin that holds this in place. And I realized this bracket's just backwards. I'm like, oh, that's why this hole is huge over here, because the well nut's supposed to be in that hole. And then that's the pin on the right there that's supposed to hold it from spinning. And then when I thought about it more, I realized, oh yeah, this little square part sits, I think, in somewhere in the bar. I can't remember, but it's got like a little square piece that keeps this from spinning as well. And like, so literally they did it every single way you could wrong. Yeah, I was just gonna say these pins often shear, and this one did. So I might put a little screw head in there or something to hold that. But yeah, fun times. Brake testing station. What do you think of my my reservoir holder? I should just leave it like this, right? That looks pretty sweet. A little plywood, a couple screws. I already had pressure right off the bat, surprisingly, because these have just been sitting upside down random directions in a box. But I guess if you don't mess with the lever, it can't really suck air in there much. They're spongy, but I looked and all the pistons seem to be going. I've got my super ghetto bleeder system here. I put a bolt through both calipers and I hung them on this piece of material. So I'm gonna kind of use my knee to hold these, and then so I can undo the bleeder with one hand, and then hold my hand on the lever up here. So seems like they're working. So that's a good sign. What I did not mention is that if you are going to do this, you do need something in there as a faux caliper, and I have 2 pieces of little 1/8 inch steel in there in between the pads. So that's the caliper that they're pushing on. Otherwise, the pistons will potentially fall out. Getting ready to tack on the little posts for the gas tank, little rubber pieces, and got to put this on. So I got some bolts. I think I took a picture of this, but bolted in with little spacers like that to help spread the force, so don't break it. But this is about 300 thick on the top, so I'm pretty confident this will not break. So it should be good. And I even left room for the top nut, so I don't have to take this off if I ever want to take this apart. Okay, it is Sunday before Dirtbag. There's my bike. So, did not get it running today. Dirtbag is a little over 24 hours from now. That's where I'm at. It is what it is. I have no time.